The incredible potential of Ditto combined with the new card Glass Trumpet is a concept that I've already yapped about before, but I wanted to build a proper 60 card deck and show off some real gameplay. Now, I could have just recorded myself playing this deck for a couple games on TCG Live and called it a day, or solitaire a few matches on my own so that you can get a feel for how the deck sets up. Maybe even play some testing games with it against another top player. But I wanted to give you the real deal. I wanted some stakes. I wanted to play this insane deck at an actual tournament with points to qualify for the World Championships on the line. So I did. But before I talk about how each of the rounds went, we should probably go through the list, because there's a good chance that you've never even read a couple of these spicy cards. First up, we have 3 Ditto. This is the core of the deck, and we'll be building everything else around powering this guy up and copying a variety of different attacks. You'll notice that I had to get a judge proxy for one of these, and that's because known card consumer Angus Johnson ate one of my Dittos before the tournament. Luckily, the judge was able to help me out here. And we actually don't really need a 4th Ditto, since half the time our opponents will be KOing our other Pokemon, as Ditto will be invincible thanks to Cavern Tackle. This attack is so good that we run 2 Terrakions, just to make sure that we can always get into the discard early. Cavern Tackle is way stronger when used by Ditto, because unlike Terrakion, who can't do anything on the next turn, Ditto still has access to any of the other attacks in the toolbox to follow up with. Another one of these tools is Ting Lu's Arrogant Impact. It's just such an easy way to access a hard-hitting option that also shares the same energy type as Cavern Tackle. And the downside of not being able to use it when you have 4 or more damage counters on Ditto is basically non-existent. 220 on its own is such a solid number, KOing the evolving Vs like Regidrago and Lugia, as well as basically any support Pokemon like Fezandipiti or Squawkabilly. Unfortunately, you do fall just shy of some of the tankier basics like Terrapagos, Iron Hands, and Raging Bolt, but there are more than enough lines that you can take in those matchups. Plus, when you combine it to follow up on a Cavern Tackle, you're hitting for 120 and then 220. 340 is enough damage to knock out all of the biggest guys in the meta like Charizard and Dragapult. We've also got this Raging Bolt. It's not the one that you're used to seeing, but Thunderburst Storm is a really cool attack. It does 30 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. These numbers can actually scale up pretty well, and the ability to chase down benched Pokemon is really useful. Unlike most other attacks that can hit the bench, like Moonlight Shuriken, Torrential Pump, and Mirage Barrage, you actually don't have to get rid of any energy to use this. Obviously, it doesn't have the luxury of hitting multiple benched Pokemon, but there are absolutely games where you can just keep using it turn after turn to completely shut down your opponent's attempts to set up. Wait a sec, that fella's got a rule box. Ditto can't copy that. Yeah, I chucked in 1 Raging Bolt EX since we're already playing the relevant types of energy and always have so much of it on the board. A single energy switch can enable a massive attack to close out the game that wouldn't be possible through anything that Ditto can copy, so it's great to have the option there. We do need some Terra Pokemon in order to enable Glass Trumpet, and I've picked 2 Stone Ogerpon EX. It's great since there are a lot of matchups where your opponent's main attacker has an ability, so it isn't even a 2-prize liability on the bench like other Terra Pokemon would be. And using the same fighting energy as everything else just makes it by far the most obvious choice. There's a 3-3 Barbarrel line that draws a whole bunch of cards, as well as a Fan Rotom to help us set up those Bidoofs and search out Dittos on that first turn. Radiant Greninja is here to help us get energy into the discard for Glass Trumpet and just to draw even more cards. When it comes to Pokemon search, we've got 4 Buddy Buddy Poffin. It's just too efficient of a card to not play 4. 4 Ultra Ball because we need to be adding specific Pokemon to our hand and not the bench in order to discard them, which Ultra Ball can also help out with. And 2 Nest Ball just for a couple more ways to find those Stone Ogerpons. Of course, we're playing 4 Glass Trumpet because this card is just completely insane and enables the entire deck to function the way that it does. I've thrown in 3 Energy Switch so that we can move energy around in order to power up those Dittos even faster, and also enable the option for Raging Bolt EX like I mentioned before. There are 3 Earthen Vessel for some energy search as well as a bit of discard, 3 Night Stretcher to recycle any resources that we may be low on. When it comes to stadiums, I've included a couple of Pokestops since we have so many items and actually want certain Pokemon as well as some energy in the discard. Rescue Board and Switch are here because Glass Trumpet can only target benched Pokemon, so we need a way of easily moving from the bench into the active. Our A-Spec of Scoop Up Cyclone can also help out with this, but it is mainly here to pick up any of our attackers that we may unfortunately start with so that we can get them into the discard instead, or just clean up a board by removing anything sitting around as an easy prize for our opponent. Our supporters mainly consist of 4 Iono to help draw cards as well as continuously disrupt our opponent, but there is also 1 Boss's Orders for some crucial gusting that can really close out games. And I've made sure to include a Pile Pad so that we can reuse these supporters in the late game. To top it all off, we have 6 Fighting Energies that will cover the costs of the majority of our attacks, as well as 2 Lightning Energies for our Raging Bolts. Now that we've got 60 cards, it's time for the tournament.
I'm going to be playing a league challenge with 5 best of 1 rounds, so let's jump into the first one. My opponent starts by flipping over a Dust Skull. He could be playing just about anything. I'm going first, and my only option is to open up with Stone Ogerpon. I attach to it from hand and then use Fan Rotom to find 3 Bidoofs so that I can set up my draw engine on the following turn. His first turn goes pretty well, and he sets up a whole bunch more Dust Skulls, a Pidgey, and then uses Rotom V to instant charge for another 3 cards. I've got a feeling that he doesn't actually have any Pokemon that can touch my Stone Ogerpon, so as long as I can get a prize lead, no matter how many Dusknoirs he pops, he'll never catch up to me. I set up my draw engine by evolving 2 Barrels, which lets me find another energy to attach from hand, as well as a Glass Trumpet and an energy switch, which allow my Ogerpon to just immediately start swinging, taking the first prize on his Duskull. After he ends his second turn without attacking, I'm sure that his only way to get through an Ogerpon is to blow up 2 Dusknoirs. So if I just bench down the second Ogerpon and scoop up Cyclone one of my 1 prizes, he'll have no choice but to go through both of my Ogerpons, which would take 4 Dusknoirs, giving me 4 prizes in the process. So once I take my second unanswered prize of the game, it's basically over. On his next turn, he does pop 2 Dusknoirs to take out one of my Stone Ogerpon, but that just leaves me with 2 prizes and him with 4 left to take.
But this hasn't really been much of a Ditto game now, has it?
Well, I guess that's just how a matchup like this kind of goes. But for style points, I did want to close it out with the deck's main Pokemon. So I decide to win on the next turn by going for Boss's Orders on the Rotom V, powering up my Ditto with a couple Glass Trumpets and a hand attach, and then announcing Arrogant Impact for game. After he reads the card a couple times, that's an easy win for my first round. We're 1-0. Next round, I actually know that my opponent is a Raging Bolt player, so after I win the coin flip, I opt to go second. And then I open up this hand. I am so close to just getting donked. I've got 2 Dittos and absolutely nothing else going on.
If you want me to top deck my way out of this, I'm going to need you to drop a sub right now. And there's the Fan Rotom off the top. Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Couldn't have done it without you.
Okay, we are so back into this game. I used Fan Rotom to find a couple Bidoofs as well as another Ditto, and now I just need another perfect top deck and we are gaming. He easily takes a KO on my active Ditto, and I don't get that second perfect top deck that I needed. But I'm at least able to punch his Raging Bolt with a Fan Rotom. This 70 damage is super relevant because it takes Raging Bolt down below 220 HP, where it can then be knocked out by Arrogant Impact. He gusts up and KOs my other Ditto. I'm losing Dittos left and right. I'm really going to need to find my rescue stretches to get these guys back later in the game. I'm already down 2 prizes, and there is no way I'll be able to attack with a Ditto this turn. But remember how my starting hand had 2 energy switch? Well, unlike Regidrago, I don't actually need my main attacker to use my main attacks. I use a Glass Trumpet, 2 energy switch, and a hand attach to directly power up Ting Lu. And then I just attack the old-fashioned way, dealing 220 damage and evening up the prizes at 4-4. Obviously, he responds by knocking out my Ting Lu, but that's fine. The discard is exactly where I want him, so that I can use Ditto to copy the attack later. Thanks to Night Stretcher, I can get one of my Dittos back, but unfortunately, I'm not quite able to attach enough energy to put together another damaging attack. Although, I can use Ting Lu's other attack, Sandbringer, to set myself up for the next turn by attaching 2 fighting energy to my other Ditto that's sitting on the bench. He takes another prize, going down to just 2 left. At this point, my game plan is to either gust a low health 2 prizer on back-to-back turns, or somehow steal a turn and 2-shot the active Raging Bolt. I make the call and try to steal a turn. I use Iono to bring him down to just 2 cards in hand, then Cavern Tackle to set up damage on the active Raging Bolt and make my Ditto invincible. Because I didn't knock anything out, he can't use Pheasantipity either. Also, I play Scoop Up Cyclone to remove Stone Ogerpon, as right now it's my only 2 prize liability on the board. He can't find a way around my Ditto and just has to pass. I take the knockout on Raging Bolt using Arrogant Impact, evening things up at 2-2. I should just win. I've got no 2 prize Pokemon on the board, both of my Dittos are fully powered up, and I've got Boss in hand to win the game on the next turn by knocking out one of his Teal Mask Ogerpon.
And then he manages to piece together a Briar play and win the game. I was so close to that one.
Taking a loss in just the second round of the tournament really stings, but it's fine. I'm just going to win the rest of them. In the third round, I'm up against a Palkia player. Luckily, I win the coin flip and opt to go first. But I open up Stone Ogerpon, and why does the rest of my hand look like this? Because he opened up with Radiant Greninja, at the time I wasn't certain what he was playing. So I benched the second Stone Ogerpon out of fear of being donked by Raging Bolt and just passed. I've got nothing going on, but at least the Stone Ogerpons might slow him down. Next turn, I rip an Iono off the top. I just keep getting bailed out of these unplayable opening hands. That finds me a Buddy Poffin, and although I can't use Fan Rotom, at least I can set up 2 Bidoofs.
He starts trying to piece together a Radiant Greninja attack, and then halfway through the sequence actually reads my cards and realizes his mistake. Yeah, none of these guys are going to take any damage from that frog.
After doing basically nothing for 2 turns, my opponent taking this incorrect line is the one mistake that might just let me claw back into the game. I set up a barrel and start building a wide bench thanks to my opponent's own area 0. I'm pretty sure I can stall at least a few turns, as the only thing he has that can attack Stone Ogerpon is Palkia V, and that falls just 10 damage shy of one-shotting it. And then he plays a cancelling Cologne. That's a 2-prize lead for him, but at least I've got the whole squad set up now and can return with my own 2-prize KO on his Wellspring Ogerpon. Using Ditto to attack with Ting Lu's Arrogant Impact, we are finally feeling like a Ditto deck. He takes a return KO on my Ditto with Palkia V-Star, and this guy has 280 HP, so I can't easily one-shot it. And my Raging Bolt EX is stuck in the prizes. But I can Iono him down to 3 and use Cavern Tackle to set up some damage and buy a turn, just like last game. But he finds the boss and takes out one of my barrels. That Cavern Tackle was not able to buy me a turn. And now I'm down 2 prizes to 4 and really need to make a comeback. Luckily, I've got a sick play in mind. He still has Area 0 up, so I make a wide bench of 1-prize Pokemon and then play my own Pokestop to bump the Area 0. This lets me discard my 2-prize liability, essentially guaranteeing that I'll have one more attack after this one. This is a nice combo. I might need to include my own Area 0 going forward. I take out the damaged Palkia V-Star with Arrogant Impact, evening things back up at 2-2. But my Raging Bolt EX is still in the prizes, so I'm not sure how I'm going to close this game out. He takes his second last prize with a Palkia V-Star, and I have no way to deal 280 damage. I could go for another Cavern Tackle play, but he's only got 1 prize left, so I would just immediately lose to a boss.
But remember, Raging Bolt EX isn't the only Raging Bolt card that I play. I rip 7 energies onto my Ditto and use Thunderburst Storm to deal 210 damage to his bench Lumineon V for game. It was genuinely such a sick play.
We're sitting on a score of 2 wins and 1 loss, and that last game has me feeling great about the deck. I sit down for my next round and win the coin flip. I have no idea what they're playing, so I just pick first. And they turn over a Raging Bolt. Sometimes even when you win the flip, you lose the flip. Luckily, I've finally got an opening hand that isn't completely reliant on my first draw. And to make things even sweeter, I top deck a Nest Ball anyway. This is great because I can grab Fan Rotom to set up and still have the Ultra Ball for Barbarrel on my next turn. He manages to get the turn 1 attack and knock out my active Ditto, but thanks to that Ultra Ball that I held onto, plus an Iono, I'm able to set up a really strong board and even use Fan Rotom to hit for that key 70 damage on Raging Bolt. Like I said before, this sets up some pretty relevant maths. He puts down an Area 0, giving us both access to an expanded bench. Then gusts up my Ditto that has energy and knocks it out. That's 2 Dittos in the bin. But thanks to the extra bench space, I'm able to thin out my deck and power up my last Ditto to use Arrogant Impact for the KO, evening up the prizes. After I take this KO, he actually starts to brick. Unable to piece together an attack, he promotes a Teal Mask Ogerpon, but it has a Bravery Charm on it, so I can't take the KO. And I've got no way to get Terrakion into the discard, so I just have to settle for another Arrogant Impact, as well as using Night Stretch to get back one of those Dittos and start powering it up.
But then he reads Ting Lu closely. This is something that almost never comes up, but if you have 4 or more damage counters on Ditto, you can't use Arrogant Impact. His plan was to slow me down by using Noctow's Speed Wing to deal 60 damage, not KOing my Ditto, but leaving it unable to copy Ting Lu's attack.
Luckily, I'm able to find and discard Terrakion on the next turn, using Cavern Tackle to get rid of Noctow, putting me at 3 prizes left to his 4. He finally sorts out an attacker, but can't gust around the Cavern Tackle invincibility, so he just has to pass. Now I've got a problem. I can't use any relevant attacks with my active Ditto. I used Cavern Tackle last turn and I have too much damage on me for Arrogant Impact. With just 3 prizes left to take, I could switch into my other Ditto, but I don't want to put it in danger. So I gust up the damaged Teal Mask Ogerpon that has a Bravery Charm and knock it out using Fan Rotom, keeping both of my Dittos safe. At this point, the game is basically over. I only need to take 1 more prize and he needs 4. I close out the game using my full HP Ditto to copy Arrogant Impact, netting me another win. It's time for the last round, and if I win this, I'll be 4-1. I get to go first, I draw my opening hand, and I open up Terrakion. I knew I was going to start with one of these attacking Pokemon that I need in the discard eventually. This is really rough. I've got Ultra Ball for Fan Rotom to start setting things up, but there is not much else in my hand. I just attach to Terrakion and pass the turn. Fortunately for me, he isn't having the fastest start either and just uses Cleffer to draw a whole bunch of cards. I don't find anything useful off of my top deck, so it's just another hand attach onto Terrakion and I pass the turn without attacking. He doesn't manage to get an attack on his second turn either, but I do finally see what his deck is going for. Palafin EX with Petron and Weavile supporting it with unlimited gusting and switching every turn. I finally get things going, setting up a Barbarrel and attaching a third energy onto Terrakion to use Cavern Tackle and take the first prize of the game. He's unable to take a KO because he doesn't have any gusting yet and Cavern Tackle's effect is still active. He has to pass yet another turn. But over on my side, I've got the downsides of using Terrakion for this attack. A massive 3 retreat cost and unlike Ditto, no access to any other attacks. I just pass my own turn, leaving Terrakion in the active for it to be knocked out. And he does so easily. Prizes are tied up at 5-5, but I realized something. Now that he's got a Weavile set up, Cavern Tackle is basically useless. He can just cast around it each time. I decide to use Raging Bolt's Thunderburst Storm to snipe a benched Finizen, putting me back on an even number of prizes. This means that all I need to do is knock out an EX on each of the next 2 turns and I'll win the game. He uses Petron to switch Palafin in and out so that it can attack again, KOing my active Ditto. He also evolves his only Finizen into this Palafin. It means he now has an answer to my Stone Ogerpon, but if that Palafin EX goes down, his damage will be capped at 220 until he finds a way to set up another Palafin EX. I'm going to try and capitalize on this by using my only attack that can one-shot the massive 340 HP of Palafin EX, Raging Bolt EX. I set up 6 energies on board using an energy switch to directly power up Raging Bolt, and then discard 5 of those energies to deal 350 damage, taking 2 more prizes. And like I mentioned before, he can't even KO the big dinosaur as his maximum damage is 220. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite find Scoop Up Cyclone to get Stone Ogerpon off the board. Otherwise, I'd have no easy 2 prize liability sitting around. And this is something that he takes advantage of, gusting up and taking his own 2 prize turn off my Ogerpon, leaving us at 2-2. This is fine though. He has plenty of low HP 2 prizes just sitting on the bench. I attach from hand to Raging Bolt, and I've already got Boss's Orders and Glass Trumpet in hand. So all I need to do is find Night Stretcher to get my Stone Ogerpon back, then I'll just gust up Petron EX, deal 210 damage with Bellowing Thunder, and I'll win the game, finishing the tournament at 4 wins and 1 loss. But I don't find that Night Stretcher.
But it's okay, he can't actually take 2 prizes. He's got no way to set up a Palafin EX this turn. He passes back, giving me 1 more shot to win the game, and I whiff. And then he sets up a Palafin EX and knocks out my Raging Bolt and wins the game.
It sucks to whiff 2 turns in a row where I could have just won the game on the spot, especially since I had so much draw. But it was a really fun back and forth set, and at the end of the day, someone's got to win. I ended the tournament at 5th place with 3 wins and 2 losses, which is pretty alright for such an insane deck. But more important than the bunch of packs that I got is what I learned about the deck and the ways in which I can improve it going forward. I think that we do need to improve the deck's consistency just a little bit. I did get some pretty rough opening hands, but there were still too many times where I was relying on a top deck to even play the game. Adding in a Noctowl would help here since it's searchable off a Fan Rotom, which ensures that we can really get things going on that second turn. Barbarrel was incredible, but not being 100 HP or less for Fan Rotom really hurt in some games. Maybe something like a 2-2 split of both Barbarrel and Noctowl could work. I also realized that bumping my opponent's Area 0 was a sick way to get those toolbox attackers into the discard. It turned Nest Ball plus a non-Area 0 stadium into an easy way to get them in the bin. And if we add Noctowl, then suddenly both of those stadiums become searchable. Plus, it can remove Stone Ogerpon from the board when we don't want any 2 prizes in play. I think there is absolutely a world where you trade out some of the discard cards for a split of 2 Area 0 and 2 other stadiums. So that on one turn you can play down the Area 0 and your attackers like Terrakion and Ting-Lu, and then on the following turn play a different stadium to clean up everything. You could even squeeze in a few useful supporting 2 prizes like Squawkabilly and Pheasantipity, since now you have an efficient way to clear them off the bench. Also, having this option means that you can potentially swap out the deck's A-Spec, since now you have a much better solution for when you do open up one of those Pokemon that you want in the discard. Rather than just relying on finding a Scoop Up Cyclone, I'd love to try playing a generically good card like Prime Catcher, or maybe the spicy Secret Box, or even that new Perfect Mixer card which comes out in the next set as a way to get your attackers and energy into the discard right away. Lastly, I wouldn't mind some kind of damage mod, even just something like Vitality or Defiance Band in order to better deal with some of the tankier Pokemon in the meta that have 230 or 240 HP. I don't think it's a necessity, but if we're going to add in Noctowl which can search out these cards, I think that one of these tools could make a pretty good addition.
I actually had so much fun playing this deck. Every time a new set comes out, I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on all of the new tools that Ditto gets access to. If you enjoyed this kind of tournament gameplay video, please let me know down in the comments, because if this is something that everyone wants to see a bit more of, I would love to invest in some equipment to up the quality and keep doing these. You won't want to miss it.